Welcome back, Focus Learners, to another explainer. Today, we're essentially hacking into the very core of .NET concurrency. We're going to uncover exactly how modern applications handle massive, crushing workloads without even breaking a sweat. Okay, let's dive into this because we are looking at the matrix of C#, demystifying async and await. Look, if you've ever stared at a totally frozen application and wondered, what exactly just went wrong behind the scenes, well, you are in the exact right place.
Imagine this scenario for a second. You've just deployed a brand new web app, right? You're checking the stats, your server's CPU is barely hitting 20%, you've got plenty of memory to spare. But then boom, under a sudden surge of user traffic, the whole system just completely freezes up. Incoming requests start timing out left and right, the UI is totally locked. So why does your server suddenly crash like that despite having all that available CPU? Well, the answer is almost always this nasty little phenomenon called thread starvation. See, you haven't run out of processing power at all. You've simply run out of available threads to actually process those incoming requests because every single one of them is blocked, just waiting for something else to finish.
To understand how we actually fix this, we need to look at the two fundamentally different ways your C# code handles these operations. First up, we have synchronous actions. Now, when your code makes a database call or a network request synchronously, it completely blocks the thread. It literally traps it. That thread is just sitting there in the dark, totally paralyzed, completely unable to do any other work until that database finally responds. And if you do that enough times across enough requests, yeah, you cause that exact thread starvation we just talked about. But on the flip side, the asynchronous action paradigm brilliantly releases that thread during the waiting period. It frees up your system resources and absolutely drastically improves the scalability of your entire architecture.
And this brilliantly illustrates what we call the waiter analogy. Think of a thread in your web server as a waiter in a restaurant. And the kitchen? Well, that's your database. Now, in a synchronous world, the waiter takes your order, walks over to the kitchen, and literally just stands there staring blankly at the chef until your food is ready. It's crazy, right? Nobody else in the entire restaurant gets served. But an asynchronous waiter, they operate completely differently. They take your order, hand it off to the kitchen, and immediately pivot to the next table to take another order. They are taking orders without standing idle. Then, when your food is finally ready, the kitchen just rings a bell, and that same waiter comes right back to serve you.
Let's put that into perspective and look at what this actually means for your raw server capacity. So a standard .NET web server might operate with a pool of, say, roughly 100 threads. If every single request synchronously blocks a thread for just 200 milliseconds while waiting for some I/O, your server's going to max out at handling around 500 requests per second. That's your ceiling. But by shifting from synchronous to asynchronous code, those exact same 100 threads are suddenly freed up during that wait time. And the difference? It's staggering. Your capacity skyrockets. You can potentially scale from just 500 up to over 10,000 concurrent requests per second, all using that exact same thread pool.
So how do we actually pull this off in code? Well, we use two distinct keywords, starting with async. Now, we need to clear up a major developer misconception right here, right now. Just marking a method with the async keyword, that does not automatically make it run in the background, and it definitely does not magically spawn new threads out of thin air. Not at all. Instead, it's really just an indicator. It simply tells the C# compiler, hey, this method contains asynchronous operations, and its primary purpose is literally just to enable the use of our next keyword inside that specific method's body.
And yep, that next keyword is await. The await keyword is where the actual non-blocking magic finally happens. When the execution flow reaches an await statement, it pauses the execution of that specific method until the awaited background task completes. But crucially, and honestly, this is the absolute key to this whole thing, it does this without blocking the thread. None of that waiting around staring at the chef. The calling thread is immediately released right back to the thread pool so it can handle other work.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is seeing the exact syntax shift drawn straight from the ASP.NET MVC documentation. In the top example, get data from database is called synchronously. The thread hits that line, it totally locks up, and it just waits. But look at the bottom example. Notice how the method signature changes to async task action result, and we use await get data from database async. That single line, literally just that single await keyword, is what ensures the thread is released back to the pool during the entire database query.
You probably noticed that the asynchronous method didn't return a raw thread, right? It returned a task. So why do we use tasks? Well, a thread is a very low-level, super heavy operating system abstraction. It requires explicit and, honestly, often really complex manual management. A task, on the other hand, is a high-level abstraction. It's managed by the Task Parallel Library, or TPL, and it automatically and incredibly efficiently utilizes the thread pool. You can think of it as this highly optimized, floating representation of work that just integrates perfectly with our async and await keywords.
So we know that await pauses the method and sends the thread away to do other stuff, but wait, how does the application actually remember where to pick back up when the data finally arrives? Well, it's time to transition a bit deeper into the iceberg and hack the black box, because the C# compiler is secretly generating an unbelievable amount of logic right behind the scenes. When you compile an async method, it doesn't just run top to bottom like normal code. The compiler actually completely rewrites your code into this hidden state machine, technically known as the async state machine.
So when execution hits that await keyword, the generated state machine kicks in and executes a very precise three-step process. Step 1. Execution pauses and control is immediately returned to the caller, which instantly frees up the thread. Step 2. All the remaining logic in your method, so your variables, your context, the very next lines of code you wrote, all of that gets bundled up and saved as what's called a continuation. And finally, Step 3. When the awaited background task finally completes, this continuation is scheduled to run, which seamlessly resumes your method exactly where it left off. It's honestly pretty brilliant.
But as absolutely amazing as this state machine is, I do have to issue a serious hazard warning right here. If you try to mix old legacy synchronous paradigms with this shiny new asynchronous state machine, you are going to fall directly into the deadlock trap. I mean it. There are catastrophic system failures lurking in production code bases right this second, purely because developers didn't fully grasp how those continuations we just talked about are actually scheduled.
Let's contrast these two approaches. The async all-the-way path, that is fluid. It's non-blocking. It's beautiful. Every level of the application simply uses await. But the sync blocking path is a complete disaster. This happens when you call an asynchronous task, but then you try to forcefully run it synchronously using .wait or .result. If you're in an environment with a synchronization context, like a WPF UI thread or older ASP.NET requests, .result outright blocks the current thread while waiting for the task. But here's the catch. When the task finishes, its continuation demands to resume on that exact same blocked thread. So the thread is waiting for the task is waiting for the thread, and bam, that is a classic deadlock. The system just completely freezes up.
So, to escape this matrix and ensure maximum application resilience, you absolutely need to memorize these definitive survival rules. Rule number 1, always use await to unwrap tasks. 2, ruthlessly avoid using .result or .wait anywhere in your code. Just don't do it. 3, never use async void unless you are specifically writing an event handler. Why? Because an unhandled exception inside an async void method will instantly crash your entire application process. No joke. 4. Use configure false false when you're writing reusable library code. And 5. Propagate async top to bottom. If you use it at the database layer, you've got to return tasks all the way up to your controller.
So the crucial point is rule number 4, configure complete false. What does this actually do in practice? Well, this specific method tells the compiler's state machine to intentionally bypass the original synchronization context. It essentially throws its hands up and says, hey, when this awaited task finishes, do not force me to wait for the original UI thread. Let this continuation resume on absolutely any available thread pool thread. By purposefully detaching from that context, you completely optimize your library code and forcefully prevent those catastrophic UI deadlocks from ever happening in the first place.
All of this brings us to the core philosophy of C# concurrency, which is perfectly summarized by this quote from our sources. Async doesn't make code faster. It makes the server handle more concurrent requests. Think about it. If you have a database query that takes 200 milliseconds synchronously, it is still going to take 200 milliseconds asynchronously. You aren't buying raw execution speed for a single user. What you are buying is an unblocked architecture. You're buying massive scalability, ensuring that one single slow query doesn't bring your entire web server to a grinding halt.
We've explored the waiter analogy, we've hacked into the compiler's hidden state machine, and we've mapped out the essential survival rules to avoid threat starvation. So, I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought for your own projects. Is your legacy codebase currently hiding a synchronization deadlock, just waiting to be triggered under a heavy load? And, more importantly, are you finally ready to refactor and go async all the way? Really think about that the next time you're reviewing a pull request. Thanks for watching this explainer. Keep your threads free.